The wait to get back across the border from Mexico could get even longer as the U.S. increases security and shuts down lanes at San Ysidro and Otay Mesa. Dry conditions and gusty winds continue to vex firefighters in northern and southern California, while officials in San Diego are warning residents to stay vigilant and have an escape plan.
Why is it that someone like my husband, who I was married to for 25 years, who loved his stepchildren, loved his children, why was he collateral damage while these very slow processes move forward and take decades and decades to get done?
And 5 years ago, a network of bike lanes was approved by transit officials, but many of the projects have been delayed, and for some, they come too late. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. Customs and Border Protection have closed several traffic lanes in San Ysidro and Otay Mesa. KPBS says Priya Sridhar has arrived there and she joins us now from the border.
Yes.
Priya?
Yeah.
KPBS. You're live.
Ebony, we're here at Borderfield State Park where we just got here not too long ago. As you can see, there's an increased Border Patrol protection agents that are here. Armed agents are here along the border. Now, if you try, we're going to try to zoom in a little bit, but on the other side of this fence, you're seeing dozens of people who appear to have come off of a bus, and we're assuming and we're being told there's speculation that these are the people from that migrant caravan. So right now, people are sort of just looking over the border, and the agents are sort of watching back. Nothing has actually happened yet, but in anticipation of this migrant caravan coming, the Customs and Border Protection actually shut down several lanes on the highway. Let's take a look.
With reports that the first group of migrants from the caravan has reached Tijuana, U.S. Customs and Border Protection has stepped up security, closing 3 northbound vehicle lanes in San Ysidro and 1 lane in Otay Mesa. The agency says it's in, quote, preparation for the migrant caravan and the potential safety and security risks that it could cause.
Capabilities the military had to harden the border.
In an earlier press conference, CBP Chief Patrol Agent Rodney Scott warned migrants about illegally crossing.
The job of the United States Border Patrol is to make sure that nobody comes into our home, into this nation, without coming through the front door. And we don't discriminate. Anybody that jumps the border fence, that crosses between the ports of entry, will be arrested and they will be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. That includes this group.
CBP says they don't know when the lanes will reopen and warn people traveling north of increased wait times because of the closures. In the meantime, military troops deployed along the border will be working to install concertina wire to harden the border.
We're helping to harden the border. So we're taking military engineers and helping to control access to the ports and deter access between the ports. We're providing medical support to take care of both military troops and CBP personnel.
They plan to be on the border until mid-December and stress they will not be enforcing immigration law. Additional CBP agents are also on standby if they're needed. Priya Sridhar, KPBS News.
We, of course, will continue to follow that developing story on TV and as well as online at kpbs.org. San Diego City Council members have approved Mayor Kevin Faulconer's plan for a new downtown homeless center. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says the approval did not come without objections.
Faulconer plans to open a so-called housing navigation center in this shuttered indoor skydiving facility in the East Village. The city purchased the building earlier this year, and Faulconer asked the council to authorize $1.9 million to upgrade the facility and fund the center's first year of operations. He said the center would be a one-stop shop for people experiencing homelessness to get connected with social services.
Do we need more housing? Yes. Do we need to coordinate our services more effectively with the Navigation Center? Yes. We can and we should do both.
Critics of the mayor's plan rallied outside City Hall before the council meeting. They pointed out the Housing Navigation Center would not create any new housing for homeless people to move into. Here's Councilman Chris Ward.
More assessments and more intakes will not produce more housing, and it's inappropriate for us to spend taxpayer money, the finite resources we have, on an action like that. There will be no added value for the state of homelessness or for the individuals experiencing homelessness.
Ultimately, the council voted 5-4 in favor of funding the Navigation Center. The center could open as soon as next month. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
The California Attorney General was in San Diego today to highlight the effort to go after sham charities who claim to help veterans. KPBS military reporter Steve Walsh says a recent verdict yielded an $8.8 million settlement.
Every year for 7 years, the Gregory family raffled off a Shelby Cobra, claiming the money went to support wounded warriors. Tanya Banyas with the California Attorney General's office says that's not where the money went.
They would have these raffles at all these auto shows up and down California. Generous donors would be buying these raffle tickets hoping to help veterans. And instead of helping veterans, the proceeds of the raffle tickets would be deposited into the charity's bank accounts, and then they would be transferred over to the Gregory's bank accounts.
She says the money went to pay for part of their daughter's law school, the family's spa treatments, and rent and travel expenses. Last week, the AG's office won an $8.8 million decision against the Bay Area family. Attorney General Javier Becerra says it's one of 10 recent cases filed by his office.
That's where the public can help us, because if the public alerts us to some of this abuse quickly, we might find that there's criminal abuse.
The Attorney General is urging people to pass along their tips to his office and to check the AG's website before donating to an unfamiliar charity. Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
Chula Vista police have made an arrest in an arson case initially thought to be politically motivated. They say 28-year-old Christopher Jenkins set fire at the Alliance of Californians for Community Empowerment office Friday. The fire was thought to be politically motivated, but Jenkins told investigators he lit it because of an ongoing dispute with the property management company and its tenants over the disposal of his belongings. Police say Jenkins is homeless and might have been living on the property without permission.
Judy Woodruff tonight on the NewsHour, the deadliest fire in California history. Miles O'Brien explores what's behind such destructive power. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Governor Jerry Brown and Governor-elect Gavin Newsom spoke publicly today about the deadly wildfires burning statewide. The two met behind closed doors to discuss the challenges Newsom is expected to face as governor, including year-round devastating fires. Governor Brown says he's thankful for help from out-of-state crews and federal assistance. Speaking to reporters, Brown said that the fires were an act of nature that couldn't have been avoided.
The legislature spent so much time and energy last year on the wildfire issue and with the conference committee and everything else. Why wasn't that enough to prevent these disasters?
Are you serious?
Why not?
Prevent these disasters? Some things only God can do. And we're doing everything we can, and there'll be new challenges that we don't even know what they are.
Camp Fire in Northern California has jumped to 42. That makes it the deadliest fire in state history. With many still missing, the death toll could go higher. The fire has scorched 125,000 acres. It's about 30% contained. Just a bit north of us, firefighters attack flames from the air as wind-whipped flare-ups from the Woolsey fire burn in Los Angeles and Ventura counties. Officials don't expect full containment until Sunday. More than 400 structures have been destroyed. 2 people have been killed. Locally, CAL FIRE is keeping a close eye on communities like Descanso and Fallbrook, where the wind is strongest. The agency is also working with increased staff and resources.
What we're really looking at is an increase in those wind speeds and a low humidity. So that's really elevating our fire danger throughout the county. We're seeing wind speeds in excess of 70 miles per hour, even 80 miles per hour in some windier locations throughout the county. Well, we have a system of weather stations that are spread throughout the county that we're able to monitor for both wind speed, humidity, and temperature. But what we've done in this event is obviously we've increased our staffing by canceling days off from the fire chief all the way down to firefighter. We've been able to staff some of our strategic reserve equipment with fire engines, dozers, water tenders, and we've also brought in extra air resources, both helicopters and fixed wing. So we have a good source of resources here in San Diego, but the reality is if any fire starts in these conditions, we know it's going to be challenging, so we're going to try to throw everything we have at it as soon as possible.
CAL FIRE urges people to stay vigilant and informed when fire conditions are this high and to always have a personal evacuation plan. Winds are up to 30 miles per hour in the northern part of the county. Gusts were kicking up in San Marcos this morning. High winds are the cause for the red flag warnings across San Diego County. Erin Calandra has the full forecast.
The wildfires continue to burn here in Southern California. It is dry. Look at these dew points. San Diego down to 22, Los Angeles at 3. That is extremely dry, and we do have a red flag warning in place. This will continue through tomorrow. The gustiest winds will be along the ridges, and we could see some wind gusts around 80 miles per hour. A weather alert still in place here. The high wind warning, that's going to be expiring this evening. Keep your eye on it, though. We could see that extended, and here are some of those winds gusting through tonight. We're still in the 30s in places like El Cajon, Ramona, San Diego, close to 20 miles per hour at times, but it's going to be another gusty evening into the nighttime hours. Here's the satellite. Nothing as far as precipitation, and tonight expect to see clear skies across the board. Borrego Springs down to 42, El Cajon at 50, and Chula Vista around 53 degrees. In San Diego, in the metro area, 55, mainly clear skies. Here's tomorrow. We still have gusty winds, but not as gusty as we have seen over the last several days. We're still going to have a high fire danger, though, and here is the map. So you can see that's an improvement from yesterday and from today. We are now going to be in the critical range for the interior parts of San Diego County, closer to the coast. We are now out of that danger range. Ramona, 76 tomorrow, Oceanside around 78, Borrego Springs close to 74, and San Diego at 77. Late this week, it's going to remain dry and warm. Temperatures along the coast, we go from those upper 70s to those low 70s, even into the 60s by Sunday. And in the interior areas, will be breezy, close to 80 degrees Wednesday, but again, by the weekend, we'll see more clouds. That fog will be popping back up, and we'll see temperatures cooler in those mid-70s. And in the mountains, we'll be in the 50s all week, less windy by the weekend. And in the deserts, we're going to remain in the 70s. Very comfortable conditions here. For KPBS News, I'm Erin Calandra.
It's been 5 years since transportation officials approved a plan to build a network of bike lanes across San Diego County. Bike advocates were thrilled, but many of the projects have faced long delays. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen takes a closer look at one bike project that some say could make the difference between life and death.
Every time that I ride past this section on my way home, I think that's the last place I saw you. That's the last place that I had a coherent conversation with you. That's where I hear the ambulance in my head.
Mary Elliott is a resident of Talmadge. We meet near the corner of 44th Street and Monroe Avenue.
You know, there's no markings or anything on these streets.
In March 2017, she was biking home from dinner with her husband, Bill. A woman parked too far from the curb opened her door without looking back.
She caught the front of his bike tire, and with such force that where she caught him, that she flung him. And so he landed on a metal manhole cover and had severe brain injury, had multiple skull fractures, he had a broken pelvis, multiple breaks in his pelvis. And, you know, he's 70 years old, so.
Elliott's husband was on life support for 4 months. He died 1 week after their 25th wedding anniversary. Bill Elliott left behind a daughter, 2 stepkids, and 7 grandchildren. The San Diego Association of Governments has plans to improve bike safety in Talmadge with the Monroe Bikeway. The project would add traffic calming and street markings alerting motorists to watch out for bikes. Sandag presented its latest design to the Kensington Talmadge Community Planning Group this summer. But residents objected over impacts to traffic flow and parking.
No, I don't own a bicycle.
David Modi is the planning group's vice chair.
There's a lot of traffic. It's a narrow road. It's a narrow 1920s road that the city has turned into an arterial without actually improving the road. So it's very difficult to squeeze all the uses into the road.
The bikeway design includes a roundabout at Monroe and Euclid, where we meet Modi. Traffic was pretty light this morning, but he says that's unusual. The roundabout, he says, will make traffic worse for residents.
So that gives preference to the cut-through traffic and leaves it very, very difficult for people who actually live in the neighborhood to get into the intersection and actually go to work.
People don't want to give up their cars, yet they complain about traffic.
Elliott says if San Diego has any hope of meeting its goals to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and end all traffic deaths, it has to start putting the safety of bicyclists over the speed and convenience of driving.
It's pretty frustrating for me because I think that if you're in a car, you are traffic and you don't get to complain about traffic, right? And at the very least, support people who want to use alternative transportation. So I want to cycle to work. I don't want to take up a parking space. I don't want to add to the traffic. So support me in that. Maybe give up a parking spot or at least allow for a bike lane that gives some visibility for cyclists.
After 5 years of planning, engineering, and redesigns, the Monroe Bikeway is in limbo. This summer, City Councilwoman Georgette Gomez asked city engineers to analyze more traffic mitigation. She says she doesn't know when that analysis will be complete. Elliott says watching this and other bike projects drag on while the streets remain dangerous to cyclists is painful.
Why is it that someone like my husband, who I was married to for 25 years, who loved his stepchildren, loved his children, why was he collateral damage while these very slow processes move forward and take decades and decades to get done? Being in that extremely painful devastating situation is, that's when those thoughts surface, and it's extremely frustrating, painful.
Ever since her husband's death, Elliott has found it hard to get back on a bike. She's not afraid. She's just sad. Seeing the Monroe Bikeway get done, she says, will be healing.
That, I think, would lift my spirits enough. I would love to ride on opening day and get this project moved forward. I would love to be there on my bike, have my son there with me on his bike. We used to ride together all the time. And that would be more of a celebration of life than a sad moment.
For now, Elliott will have to keep on waiting. Earlier, Sandag had planned on having the project open next year. Its latest estimate has pushed that back to 2021. But with the most recent delays, even that timeline is uncertain. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
Sandag has spent $94 million so far on its early action bicycle program. 7.5 miles of new bikeways have opened to the public. First Lady Michelle Obama is out on tour promoting her new memoir. This as the family's White House photographer discusses his experience capturing their lives digitally. KQED's Thuy Vu sat down with Pete Sousa to discuss his new book and his social media campaign.
Pete Sousa joins me now in the studio. Nice to have you here.
Thanks for having me on.
Well, first off, for those who may not know it, the title of your book, Shade, plays off the phrase throwing shade. Can you explain what that means?
It's making snarky comments about an individual or individuals that maybe are not so positive.
Was that your intention when you started posting nostalgic photos of President Obama on Instagram with your own captions?
That was my intention. I just didn't know it was called throwing shade.
And why did you feel a need to do that, to put up these photos with captions that define the contrast between the Obama administration and the Trump administration?
I mean, I saw how difficult a job it is to be president and how serious President Obama took it. He respected the office of the presidency so much, and we don't see that now. And that was the reason why. I mean, if Mitt Romney or John McCain or Marco Rubio had been president, I wouldn't be doing this because I know they would have respected the office of the presidency. But now we've got a guy that lies every day, he bullies people, he's disrespecting the office. And I felt I had a voice to speak out.
And as a private citizen now, you feel like you can.
I can, absolutely.
And I want to show a picture here. One of the pictures from your book, it's from your Instagram account. It's a picture of President Obama talking with female aides. And you added a new caption that says, "Respect for women." Now, clearly, this photo took on new meaning for you more recently, given current events. How often does that happen when, with your photos, in that your perception of them changes over time?
Well, I think it does. You know, the interesting thing about my Instagram feed is sometimes I post something in a reaction to something he's tweeted or a news story and post it on Instagram, and people don't know what I'm referring to. And they have to go Google to find out what happened that day. You know, in the book, I make it very clear what I'm referring to, because on one page you see a Trump tweet and on the other page you see my response.
When you first took that photo, though, what was your thought then? Just another meeting?
It was just another meeting. And, you know, President Obama had a lot of women in top positions. I mean, his last 3 years, the top 3 national security aides were all women, which is extraordinary.
And now, of course, in light of the Me Too movement and current events and the current administration, that's changed for you. What was it like to follow President Obama around and attend all these trips with him?
Well, it was very hard on your personal life, but no, it was a great privilege. It was a great way to see the world. Oftentimes, President Obama would try to go and visit a cultural site when he was in a country that he hadn't been in before. Those were the best trips, when we got to do something like that. And
did you get to see another side of him that we don't?
Well, I mean, the great thing about my job, too, is I saw him in all compartments of his life. I mean, I'm in the Situation Room with him, but then I'm often with him and the girls, or, you know, him and the whole family. And so I saw all the aspects of his life. And he's not any different than we perceive, than most people perceive. He's probably funnier than people realize, and he's more disciplined than people realize. But he's not like really different, you know, behind the scenes.
And as you were photographing him, did you try to be a fly in the wall, or did you develop more of a close relationship with him, a conversational relationship?
Yeah, I had a conversational relationship with him, but, you know, my job was to be an observer, to be a recorder of visuals. And there were some days where I might not say anything to him. And then other days, you know, we might have a conversation about, you know, our family or the ball game, the latest ball game, that kind of thing.
Were there things you decided not to photograph, or perhaps were told you can't photograph?
No, I mean, I pretty much had access to everything. And every single photograph that I made, in 1.9 million, every single photograph is now in the National Archives.
I find that so amazing. I mean, that's a lot of photos, right? Nearly 2 million. Yeah. How do you go about finding the right picture when you want to post something? Do you have a special system of organizing your photos?
No, it's pretty much just up here.
All 2 million?
No, not all 2 million. I mean, basically, I'm choosing photos from one of the ones that we had made public while he was in office. We made, given his level of transparency, we made lots of pictures public on Flickr, Instagram, Facebook, whitehouse.gov. And so all those pictures are kind of stored in my head. So oftentimes when Trump makes a tweet, I know exactly which photo I want to post.
You were also an official White House photographer for President Reagan. What was it like working in the Reagan White House?
It was different. I mean, Reagan was in his 70s and I was in my 20s. I was not the chief photographer, so my level of access was not as good. But I did get to know President Reagan a little bit. And he, too, respected the office of the presidency. You know, politics aside, he was a decent human being. So I sort of feel I could make this case now and not be called partisan, because I've worked for both a Democrat and a Republican.
And you feel like they handled the presidency in the same way or in a similar manner, despite their policy differences?
I mean, I think President Reagan was more of a big picture guy. And you know, just because of his age, he wasn't as active. But you know, he respected the office, and you know, as much as President Obama did.
And I know this is like asking someone to name their favorite child, but do you have a favorite photo from your Obama days?
You know, there's so many. I mean, my main goal was to create the best photographic archive that had ever been done on a president. And I'll let other people choose which they think are the favorites or the most important.
Well, you created quite an incredible archive. Pete Souza, it's been such a pleasure to talk to you. Your new book is titled Shade, A Tale of Two Presidents. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me on.
Now here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom on morning editions. The rules are changing for marijuana in Mexico. What's next if the nation makes it legal? And on midday edition, remembering the man who created the Marvel Universe. Highlights from the career and life of Stan Lee. That's tomorrow on KPBS Radio. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.